Hello, this is National Chess Master Allrats at chess.com, here to continue my video series on the correspondence team match played between my video lessons group and the team CARPE DIEM. This was played on board 130. Our man is Mainline Novelty, low 1600s versus KnightAtTheRoxbury, mid 1500s. Great handle, by the way, based on a Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan skit on Saturday Night Live, made into a campy motion picture back in the 90s. I love it. All right, anyway, this is a pretty interesting game. It's kind of puzzling in a way. I'll explain what I mean when we get there. Okay, I've talked about using books and databases to get your way through the opening, and certainly that's something some people do, but it's something obviously a lot of people don't do. And here, White plays a very interesting move. Now, D3, it looks harmless. It looks doesn't look like a bad move, and it certainly isn't. But here's the interesting thing. As I'm talking about books and databases, I have databases, and I could look up and see how many times this move has been played, but I have what I consider the authoritative work on the English opening. It was a 4-volume set on the English published back in 1979 to 1981 by international master John Watson. Now, if you haven't heard of John Watson, he's still around. He makes videos for ICC, and he's an excellent writer. If you play the French defense, you want to get his work on the French defense, anything he's published, okay? What I like about him is he will explain ideas why you're doing openings. He will also make suggestions, like untested is this move or that move. And even though his books are outdated, as I've said, they're 1979 to 1981. There's a lot of new theory written since then. They still stand up as far as what ideas he explains. Well, what's interesting is I pulled the first volume off, and it's written in English descriptive notation. If you don't know that, you need to learn it because there's a lot of good books written in English descriptive notation. It's called English 1... Pawn to King 4. That's the equivalent of 1... E5. Well, here's the interesting thing. 3d3 is nowhere to be found in Watson's book. Okay, so that kind of says something right there that maybe this isn't the best move. Now, it could transpose into one of those books or one of those openings. The moment black plays d5, then we have a Sicilian reversed. It could very easily transpose into one of those. But I actually like the way Mainline Novelty handles this. I think he did a great job, and puts White's choice of openings to a test here, and we'll see how it progresses. Knight f3. And now black plays a very interesting move, d5. And you look at this, well, hey, look, you just hung a pawn. Well, the answer is no, you did. This is a trick that's known in the Sicilian defense. d5 attacks this knight. Where do you want to put the knight? Pick a square. Okay, let's try e4. Okay, queen a5 check. Attacks the queen. And picks up the knight. I mean, not attacks the queen. Attacks the king and picks up the knight, and black wins. So White decides to capture on d5, and now here's what's interesting. Here's White's next move, e3. Now, again, it's not a bad move, but let's go ahead and play black's next move, and let's look at the position. Black is at least fully equalized. The position is symmetrical with two exceptions, and those are the center pawns. White's given up a lot of space here. Even though White at the moment has the advantage of the first move, White can't really do anything with it. Now, with correct play, this game will remain equal, but White starts to commit some errors here, and I think Mainline Novelty finds an excellent way of exploiting this. The logical move for White to play here is bishop e2 and then castle. Okay, that's the logical move. But instead, what White decides to do is spend a tempo with g3. Now, it doesn't look like a bad move, but really it is. Why is it a bad move? Okay, you've just weakened f3, now, as well as h3. Now, that may not seem like a problem, but watch what Mainline Novelty is going to do to exploit it. So every time you move a pawn, you weaken a square. And when you push both your e-pawn and your g-pawn, you've weakened f3. White would have been better off not, if he was going to fianchetto, not playing e3 at all. Keep it there. Keep it on e2. So let's see how to exploit something like this. What would you do? Think about it. Pause the video. Okay, did you come up with the plan that he's going to do here? Bishop e6. The idea he's going to try to do is trade off that fianchetto bishop. Now, a lot of positions, I don't mind if my opponent wants to trade off my fianchetto bishop because it takes him several moves to do it. Now, while he's busy doing that, I'll just develop pieces. But in this case, White's going to miss that light-squared bishop. And here I think White makes a mistake. He should develop a piece with bishop d2. What he plays is rook e1, and we'll see why this is a mistake in just a moment. Maybe what he's hoping is Black won't take his bishop. And if he doesn't, he'll just drop the bishop back to h1 and clear it up. But the rook is going to be misplaced on a1, and we'll see why in just a moment. Okay. And now Black goes about his business to finish his development. And here, White should be developing his pieces. As a matter of fact, I have a good move for him here. The good move to play is e4. And why play this move? Well, you no longer have a light squared bishop, so you need some pawns on light squares to play a little defense for you. You also need to mobilize this bishop on c1, and it needs diagonals. Okay, it needs squares to get to, and there's nothing forcing Black to push to d4 here, but I'll just give you an example. If Black does push to d4, he does have a little bit of space on the queen side, but now White should transfer the knight to e2, and then the next step is to move the knight to h4 and attempt to get f4 in. Now this is why this rook is misplaced on e1. It belonged on f1. Okay. Now the rook's going to have to admit his mistake and come back at some point if White follows this plan. Okay, you with me? So he doesn't play e4 now or in the foreseeable future. So a3 doesn't really, I don't think it really fits what White's trying to do here because Black's maintaining a space advantage. You know, look at the center again. Black develops a piece and White makes a threat. But you see, one of the problems White's doing is White's putting his pawns on dark squares. He owns 7 pawns, 6 of them are on the color of his bishop. That's not too wise. If an endgame comes up, you're going to have a very, very bad bishop. Meanwhile, Black's pawns are starting to find their way to light squares, giving this bishop a lot of freedom and mobility. And if we reach a bishop ending at some point, Black will have targets in the enemy pawn structure, and White won't. Okay, so let's move on. Bishop b2, and look how far ahead Black is in development. He's got everything developed. White still has to get his queen and his rook into play. And he gets the rook into play. And Black gets this rook back maybe to a better square. It's in play when it castles, but this improves its position. And here White's just catching up in development. Remember, White had the first move, and yet Black's been ahead in development, probably because of all the pawn moves that White has made. And at this point, White now finds an excellent strategy and exploits the fact that White has admitted the move I was recommending for him of playing e4, because now Black plays e4, and suddenly White's in a bit of a pickle here, and we'll see why in a moment. Okay, now the knight's under duress. Now here, knight e5 would have been a terrific move. It's threatening to go to d3, but the move he plays is fine. It attacks the knight and gains a tempo. And at this point, White plays the knight back to h3, and now Black finds the move knight d3, and suddenly this move is a very, very serious threat. And White's in trouble. There's really nothing he can do to save his game. He comes up with knight back to f4, which guards d3, but he just chases him right out. And now the knight seeks in on d3, and there's a fork. We'll come back and look at this position when I get to the end. And Black picks up material. Black has a strategically won game, and Black continues to press his advantage and work on those weak light squares. Check. This forces the queens off and more. White decides to take, and now this pawn gets wedged in, and White, to his horror, discovers he can't take it, or Black will fork him, and White's going to be down a rook. He'll have a couple pawns for it, But he's still down a rook, and those pawns he has won't last. But now his back rank is weak, and black plays a strong move. Not only does it cover the pawn on g5 and keeps this knight stuck where it can't go anywhere, black is threatening a combination here, and we'll see it. Now white plays the move he should have played a long time ago, but it's too late. Knight takes, and clearly you can't take with a rook. You get back rank mated, but black now has a winning tactic. Just simply rook takes bishop, and game's over. You can't take the rook, it's mate, and if you put the rook anywhere on the f-file, black is going to force that rook off. And white will be lucky if he doesn't get checkmated here. I'm not sure how he avoids a mate. Let's see. Let's try to. Yeah, let's walk right into a pin. How about that? Wow. That's how you avoid mate. Game over. Okay, let's back it up and to the point when black played knight e5, and let's see what white could do, if anything. I'm pretty sure he's in serious trouble. Since this is a threat, you've got to prevent it by moving one of your rooks. But, it's coming in anyway. This knight is coming into d3 anyway, and you just can't stop it. And if rook takes, you're giving up material, so this rook's going to have to move. Let's see, let's try b1. This is just going to run into disaster somewhere. Let's see. Knight takes. Now, white does have his Zwischenzug if he wants. If he takes with the rook, you're going to drop the knight on c3. So at some point, he has to take with this queen. And here comes this check. This is looking awful gruesome. We're going to put the king g1. Let's see. I'm probably missing something in here. I'm sure black has probably has better than this. Let's see. Let's back it up a little bit. Because knight f4 just loses. I'm trying to find a better defense for white. If one exists. I really don't think one does. White's just too weak on the light squares. Okay. Let's see. We can throw this at you. And if you take with the rook, here comes knight d3. We're on the bishop. The bishop can go back to e1, or a1, I mean. I'm not liking the looks of this at all for white. It's so close to being a win for black here. I'm just not finding it yet. Let's see. Well, maybe he had a defense. You got to stop the fork. But, black can just sink this in right now. And, you can go to c2 also, but I'm just toying with b1 at first. And, here, let's do it this way. Queen check. Okay, now if queen takes, pawn takes check. And the king moves, then knight takes bishop, and then you win the rook. You win the knight on c3. And if you have king f1, you're really asking for it. Here, let's see. Queen check. Knight back. If anything, you just pocket this pawn. And I think white's in serious trouble here. The next threat is knight g4. And the knight's immune. He can't take the knight because f2 is falling. Now this has got to be winning for black. Yeah, queen f3 check. See, this is going to lose. Check. Doesn't matter if you take the pawn or not. You have knight takes, and if you Zwischenzug with this, you're not protecting the knight on c3, and there black wins. Okay, so I think it was well played by Black, especially the way he equalized the opening and then got an advantage and pressed it. White certainly didn't seem to make any mistake other than to get some bad light squares, and then White found a way to, or Black found a way to exploit them, and game was over. Anyway, thanks so much for your time. There'll be another video as soon as I can get to it. Thank you.